Welcome to the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. I'm Carlos Peña, joined by Lindsay Berra and curator Berra and Odell, and we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame Connections episode from Jim Thorpe to Jackie Robinson. All right, I absolutely love the connections we made in this episode, and we have two of the greatest athletes in the 20th century.
You know, it's amazing how you can link things up once you start really diving down into them. And as a curator, one of the fun things that I had was to start pulling things apart and finding, and I didn't even know we had this ball in our collection. This is the ball that Jim Thorpe signed when he was part of this tour that went over to England. But the thing that's really amazing about Jim Thorpe is that he was such an amazing athlete.
Can we talk about that? Because
I
don't think we paid that much attention to the fact that, I mean, he was great at everything he did.
He was. So he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He got Olympic medals for the decathlon and the pentathlon. Those are that means that you're the greatest all-around athlete.
That's not even just running. That's like, you know, the discus and the hurdles and all of these things. He's the greatest at
I thought I was an athlete, Lindsay.
when was the last time you threw a discus?
No. That's impressive.
I know. You know, the sad thing is that baseball was sort of his downfall for the Olympics, because when he was he played in the minors. Here's this Native American athlete. Who imagines he's going to be going to Stockholm, Sweden, and playing in the Olympics? That's what happened. And then they found out, oh, he's got this, he played professional ball, so now he's no longer an amateur.
Yeah.
Not that he played professional baseball. Nothing professional about any of those parts of the sport that he, decathlon or pentathlon. It's like he was once paid for one thing, but that, back in those days, that was it. So they stripped him of his medals, and he didn't get them back until the 1980s. Even if you go back to the rules of the day, he shouldn't have been stripped from them, because there was a window in which you could protest, and the protesters, and I've forgotten who it was, some country, said, oh, he was a professional athlete, and it was after the protest window had closed, but they reopened it in order to take his medals away from him.
And nowadays we're making allowances like to have NHL players play in the Olympics, so there's all these loopholes. Give the guy a loophole.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's just so unfair, right?
It is.
It really is. I mean, we're looking at one of the best athletes who's ever lived, and I don't think he got enough recognition.
That's right. That's right.
We're doing so now.
One of the, it also says how tough baseball is, how hard it is to be a great baseball player, how hard it is to hit the ball. Because here's this great athlete, and he has a few years in the major leagues, but he's not the star that he's going to be later on in football, for instance. You know who one of his teammates was a guy named Les Mann. That's what this big thing is right here.
This is so cool. Fast forward, rewind, stop action. It's like your cell phone, but it's not.
That's right. That's right. It's everything that you want it to be. It's like, how many times did you go back and look at film of yourself?
Goodness. All the time.
Yeah. What Les Mann wanted to do was he wanted to let everybody know the right way to play baseball. He loved amateur baseball. He was a grassroots guy. How do you teach people how to play baseball? And because he was on the Braves with Thorpe and played for a number of different teams, he knew all the major leaguers. So he got them to show him how to field, how to hit, how to pitch, and he filmed them on this big format film that he had, and then he'd mail that around to all these amateur places.
So are you telling me that this is the first instructional baseball video out there?
The thing that's unique about this was not only was it it was at least one of the very first, but here was the thing that was interesting. He invented this particular machine, this projector, so that he could roll it, slow it down, stop, back it up, see how he's working his foot like this, without burning the film.
Does the Hall of Fame have any of the videos that came from this?
We do. We've got one film. It's in it's nitrate film, which is really explosive, actually, and it's being converted now into safety film by Kodak over in Rochester.
So we'll be able to watch that at some point.
We'll be able to watch it at some point.
That's really cool. Maybe we can learn something.
Does it still work?
No, it doesn't work any longer. No. Well, I'll say this. We've never plugged it in because you don't want to find out what the danger is.
Oh, that is so cool, because this is it seems to me that it's way before its time, right? Like, this is
I
Yeah.
know.
This is such an innovation.
Yeah, so this is
at
the
that time.
1920s that somebody's figuring out, hey, let's do this.
And look at it now. Look how hitters they don't even know what to do with themselves unless they had videos.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's cool that it was made for baseball, not for the movies. you
Right.
know?
Yeah, that's right. No, I think it's. I love it. I love the fact that that somebody came up to us and said, "Hey, we found this." And it actually was a college down in North Carolina. Said, "We found this stuff in our closet. Is it something that you're interested in?"
You're like, "Yeah, we
and
are."
we said, we did some research. It was like, yeah, this is really amazing.
And this is not all he's done, right? I mean, we're talking about the fact that he is huge in amateur baseball,
That's
right? And a big proponent for the Olympics.
That's right.
Baseball in the Olympics.
In the Olympics, baseball in the so baseball and the Olympics and baseball in the Olympics.
Okay.
So in the very early 30s, he started championing to get baseball into the Olympics, and he finally succeeded for the 1936 Olympics, which was held, in Berlin. And so he's held some tryouts in Baltimore, for instance, and one of the ball players who came down from New York was named Herman Goldberg. Now, Herman Goldberg is a Jewish ball player, and Adolf Hitler had said, we don't want any blacks coming,
Yeah.
we don't want any Jews coming. What did America do? We sent over Jesse Owens, we sent over Jewish ball players, because we weren't going to play that Adolf Hitler's game, right?
And we sent over Mac Robinson.
And we sent over Mac Robinson. Mac Robinson, Jackie Robinson's older brother. That's exactly
How about
right.
that?
So
Unbelievable.
No slouches in that family at all.
no, not at all. So one of the amazing stories that that Herman Goldberg mentioned. First of all, they changed his name in the Berlin baseball program to Harold, because and added an H on the end of his name to make it seem a little bit less Jewish because of the
Unbelievable.
anti-Semitism
Yeah.
that was there. This was really serious business. And he was at the Olympic Village, which later ended up becoming Germany's West Point. And he walked through a door that was usually locked, but it was at the end of one of the hallways. And he said it was the biggest open area that he'd ever seen, enclosed. This huge garage that just went on forever. And he said he later found out that that's where they stored tanks.
Wow.
And the whole Olympic Village had been built as part of the military infrastructure for Germany, preparing for World War II.
This is an amazing story because, I mean, we think about Goldberg, we think about Robinson, Mac Robinson, going pretty much into the belly of the beast. I mean, they're going into Nazi Germany, they're not wanted. If anything, they were being persecuted and hunted.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, we're going over there. And not only did they go there, they won, correct? Mac Robinson?
Yeah, so Mac Robinson set an Olympic record, or it would have been an Olympic record, except that he was running against Jesse Owens, who set a world record.
That's right.
And so Mac ended up, getting a silver medal, but
So first and second, black athletes.
Black American
Right.
We
athletes.
got Goldberg, a Jewish athlete playing in the Olympics in Nazi Germany. This
Right.
is amazing.
I know Jesse Owens is not as tied to the baseball stuff that we're talking about, but the fact that he beat Mac Robinson by 0.4 seconds
He was
over a
flying.
200 meter, he was flying because
Yes.
Mac had already broken the record and he broke the record and then broke it again.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I could only imagine Hitler saying, "What's going on?"
yeah,
Like, yeah, take that.
yeah, that's right.
That's awesome.
Isn't that something? So, of course, Mac Robinson's younger brother is Jackie.
And would that by any chance happen to be the cap that Jackie wore when he was
put it on the
thrown
gloves.
out stealing home plate in the 1955 World Series?
Thrown out. I don't know. The
I'm
umpire
sticking
said
with
the umpire said he was safe.
The umpire couldn't see.
Jackie Robinson, a star in his own right. He was a four-sport star at UCLA. So basketball, football, track, and baseball. So this is the cap that he wore in the 1955 World Series, the only one of those famous Subway Series that the Dodgers won. So let me pass this around so you get a chance to take a look at that.
That's so cool.
This is Jackie Robinson's hat.
I know.
All right, that is unbelievable.
And this pretty Dodger blue is still all bright, not too faded.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
And just a little bit of wear there up on the top on the squatchy.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
this
You know
is
that's
a
what
little
that's
bit.
called?
It's called a what?
A squatchy,
Can you spell that?
Squatchee.
Oh, 2 E's. It's squatchy.
Correct.
Did you know that that was called that?
No.
There we go.
It's small. That's the one thing I noticed. It's really, really small. Maybe I have a big head, maybe. But I
How
feel
did
like
you guys
this is
come
small.
into possession of this?
So this was given to us by a friend of Jackie Robinson's.
It's really cool.
Elston Howard sends it grounded to Pee Wee Reese. And these Dodgers at last are world champions.
This World Series obviously was a huge deal for
Right.
the Dodgers, the first one that they won after, as you mentioned, after all those years playing against the Yankees. And my dad actually asked me a random trivia question the other day, and he said, what 2 stars, one each from the Yankees and the Dodgers, did not start Game 7 of the 1955 World Series? And I stared blankly back at him, and he said, Mickey Mantle and Jackie Robinson. So
No.
Jackie actually played the first 6 games of that 7-game series. He went 0 for 4 in Game 6, and the manager, Walter Alston, did not play Jackie Robinson in Game 7, the pivotal Game 7 of the 1955 World Series.
How about that?
That's a bad decision.
Well, but they won.
It worked
So
out.
it
They
worked
won.
out.
Still though.
I know it's
Still though. It needs to be
it's
in
really
alignment.
hard to to pull a Hall of Famer out of the
Yeah.
Game 7 of the World
You know,
Series. That takes some stones.
I'm sorry, but I'm in awe because we talk about Jackie Robinson and everything that he meant to this game,
Yeah.
right? And we celebrate him. We've worn his jersey on Jackie Robinson Day.
Yeah.
I'm holding his hat.
How cool is that, wearing number 42 out on the field?
We understand the magnitude and the gravity of what we're doing, you know, and how much it means. And I think everyone, we don't take that for granted, especially when I know that he was the one who pretty much set everything in motion so that I could play. I
Right.
mean, that to me
right.
it's amazing. So to be holding his hat, come on. You mind if I keep it?
Sorry, I mind, but I don't mind you holding it. So you know who came up with the idea of wearing 42 on beginning once a year and then later on, you know, for every team to do that? It was Ken Griffey Jr.
Really? All
Yeah.
right.
So Griffey in 2007 petitioned Bud Selig, the commissioner. He said, I would like to honor Jackie Robinson and wear 42. And so they had a little bit of back and forth. And it was Ken Griffey who said, you know, let's honor him in a different way. So the number had been retired now for 10 years. And so this was at the 10-year anniversary. Griffey had the very first Jackie Robinson Day when you could opt into wearing 42.
That is
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool, Lindsay.
Way to go, Junior.
You know, Yes, Ken Griffey Jr., one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
Well, John, earlier on today, found my scouting report from before the draft from the Cleveland Indians.
That's right.
And the scout wrote in there, player that he's compared to, that you can compare him to. And they wrote Griffey.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
So I'm like, what? Really? Oh, I achieved at least fooling one guy.
Did you? Was that the first time you saw that?
I've
scouting
never
report?
seen my scouting report, and
Wow.
it said player that you can compare him to, and it says Griffey. I couldn't believe it.
Think about how tough that would have been if you knew you had to live up to the expectations of being
Yeah, I'm
compared
glad
to
I
Ken
know
Griffey.
after.
So, you know, so the Cleveland, if you hadn't been picked by Texas, then Cleveland was next up. You know who they ended up picking instead? Because they could not pick you because you'd already been picked up by the Rangers. It was a guy you might have heard of. His name was CC Sabathia.
Ah, there you go.
They did just fine. all
CC
right?
the consolation prize.
John, this is great stuff, all right? And we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Hall of Fame Connection series. If you'd like to learn more about the people, places, and artifacts featured in this video, go to baseballhall.org, where you can plan your visit to the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York, and discover your own connections to the game. Thanks for watching. For more incredible stories, check out our Hall of Fame Connection series. And don't forget to subscribe. Plaque!